I got into social work perhaps by accident, and that is that when I was in high school, I was a leader in a number of student organizations, student government, the Junior Red Cross, the Episcopal Youth in the state of Kansas, was just an active teenager. And I got placed on the board of directors of an organization called the Kansas Council for Children and Youth. And that was the organization that planned Kansas's representation to the White House Conference on Children and Youth. That would have been in 1960, I believe, was that conference. So I found out that social workers weren't necessarily what fit my image of social work. You know, the little old lady with her hair in a bun and the brown Oxfords and the stereotypes of what social workers were. And I met some men who really cared about other people and did a lot to improve the quality of life for people of all ages. And I really got taken in by that. I ended up majoring in business as I went through the University of Kansas, but I had the chance because the executive director of the Kansas Council for Children and Youth left to take another job, and they put me in since I was on campus as the interim director of that, and then I got a job with the Bureau of Child Research and learned more about research and that sort of thing. So I kind of stumbled into it, but I couldn't be happier in finding a profession that kind of met my people orientation and still gave me a chance for lots of stimulation in what was really a developing field. I got into higher education by chance too. When I finished my master's degree, I took a position as executive director of the Topeka, Kansas Health and Welfare Planning Council. And I worked there for about 3 years, and one day the dean of the School of Social Work at Kansas came into my office and said, "How'd you like to start a BSW program?" And I no interview, nothing. He just came in and offered me the job. And so Nadine and I, my wife, talked about it and decided it'd be, too good an opportunity to turn down. So I commuted from Topeka to Lawrence for several years, and then we moved over there, and then I completed my PhD at Denver University. And when a job opened up here at CSU, I took that job, and that was the history of it. Well, I came here, I was Associate Dean of Social Work at KU, and we really felt I ought to have part of my career in another university, and so when this opened up, and being director of the social work program here called for the administration as well as the teaching, and having my background in business as well as in social work, it was really a natural to come in and take over what was very much a fledgling program. It had just been accredited for the first time, one of the first schools in the country to be accredited at the baccalaureate level. And it's now one of the few that's maintained its accreditation through all of the history of accreditation in social work. So it was really a nice opportunity to come to a program that was emerging and to give leadership to it for a period of time. Well, I could probably speak to all of them because I really enjoyed all of them. Coming as an administrator, I did give leadership to the social work program for a period of time. Then I went into the dean's office as an associate dean. When the College of Professional Studies and the College of Human Resource Sciences merged, they asked me to serve as the interim dean for the first year of those two colleges coming together into applied human sciences. And that was a challenging year, bringing disparate disciplines together who hadn't worked together before. But it was certainly a rewarding experience. And then I went back as Associate Dean for Research later for another 10-year period. So I certainly have enjoyed the administration. However, I love teaching. And all through that period of time, I never quit teaching. I think often administrators feel they're so pressed with the administrative duties that they quit doing the scholarship in their own fields, they quit teaching, and I always maintained around a half-time load in social work, writing textbooks, teaching, working with students. As I said, I'm very much a people person, and I love interaction with students. I also, as I've gotten older and more experienced, it's been another reward to be able to work as mentor to some of my colleagues on the social work faculty and even people in other departments in the university have latched on to me as a mentor to help them kind of plan how they're going to succeed in higher education. So I can't say that any is my favorite, and I think I'm adaptable enough as an opportunity arises and I start working on it that I can find joy in doing it, and have found that for 38 years now at CSU, plus my other 10 years at Kansas. So I love teaching, love being a part of higher education. Well, mentoring is a give and take situation. And I learned so much from my students as well as the faculty members that I've mentored that sometimes when we think about mentoring, we think of it as a one-way street. There's the mentor and the mentee. I really find it a two-way street. So I get lots out of the time I spend with both students and faculty members when I'm working with them, guiding them, they're sharing their experiences, things they'd like to know more about. So it's really growth producing for me, as well as hopefully making contributions to them. And certainly there is feedback that comes to me, and sometimes it takes the form of some of the nice awards and honors that I've received while I've been working here. As I sometimes say, that if you hang around long enough, people forget all the mistakes you make, and then they give you these awards based on what they remember of the positive things. It was when I was just finishing my master's degree at the University of Kansas, and I had an internship in the State Department of Social Welfare, where I was learning some of the things that social workers do in particularly a statewide planning effort. The director of the Department of Social Welfare was named Marvin Larsen, and he had been a law professor at Washburn University and then was appointed to this job to administer this large, complex state agency. It happened that his wife was an employee at the same insurance company where my father worked, so he knew me a little better than others, and I had known his daughter in high school and that sort of thing. But Marvin called me in one day and he said, "Brad, I want to give you some advice." He said, "I've been in this business for quite a long time, and there are 3 rules that I think you ought to consider as you go through your career." And frankly, I've taken that advice and tried to use it as I have had this long career in social work and higher education. His first piece of advice was, "I don't need this job." And the point that he was making was there are lots of jobs out there, and if you do your work well, you can move. And if you compromise your principles in order to hold a particular job, you're not going to do it well. You're not going to make some of the decisions that you need to make. And so feeling trapped in a job is really something that you should never do. His second piece of advice was, I never use a position as a stepping stone to something else. And again, that's saying if your eyes are away from what your primary commitment is, then you end up in a position that you're compromising the work that you could put into your current position in order to maybe look more attractive for some other position. And I found if I don't dedicate a big part of my being to my work, I don't do it as well as I can do it. And so I think that advice of keeping your focus on your primary job is wonderful. And I have found if you do that, then many other opportunities come along, and that you can respond to those opportunities. I suppose job coaches don't like my philosophy, which is one that says kind of point yourself in some direction and claw your way into that position. I really believe if you do your job and do it well, other opportunities will come along. You can look at those and decide if you want them or not. But it's just like when I got invited to go on to the faculty at the University of Kansas and develop the BSW program there, I had never thought of teaching or being a professor or doing any of that sort of thing. And here I was doing my job well, and the dean walks in and to my office and says, "How'd you like to do this?" And that's been pretty much the way my career's developed. Marvin's third point, I am on track, I think. Marvin's third point was, I get my love and affection at home. And again, if you feel that your sense of well-being and being appreciated comes from things that you do in your job, and particularly administrative jobs where you have to make some hard decisions, particularly personnel decisions. If you feel you have to be loved there, you're probably not going to be able to do some of the things you need to do. And I've always had a great supportive wife. I've had 4 wonderful kids and their families. I get plenty of love and affection here. So that advice from Marvin is really helpful. My wife's advice is always, I'll add one, that people are more important than things. And that really gives a lot of direction in life too. So money is not important as people and ways of relating to them, and sometimes you have to make hard decisions where that's another important guiding principle. So I'd say those 4 principles have really impacted me and the way that I've approached my life and my work. The Fulbright opportunity was really a great experience for us. My wife and 3 of our children went with me to New Zealand. I had the opportunity to work at Massey University, which was a university that had 7 years earlier started a undergraduate baccalaureate social work education program. And they were wanting someone to come and help them evaluate the program. So I didn't actually do much teaching there other than going into a class here and there. But I worked with the faculty in that university and people in the communities throughout the North Island of New Zealand to undertake a study of what social workers do in New Zealand. And I had been a part of a national project in the U.S. that was just moving along in that direction, and I had the chance to really pre-test or pilot test some of the instruments that we'd been developing for work here in the U.S. We modified them to fit New Zealand. I gave workshops all over that part of New Zealand in trade for people completing this rather elaborate questionnaire about what they do in their work. And then I had a team, and we synthesized that material into a set of tasks that social workers typically perform, and we could know how often they do them and how important they were in their work. And then we took those tasks, and I had another team that went into the curriculum of that school, and we evaluated how much they taught to each of those tasks within the social work education program. And then we put those together, and by matching them, we were able to see that in some areas that the faculty really liked to teach, they might teach 20 times more than people in practice actually used. And yet, at other times, they were way under teaching things that people needed to have in their practice. So while you want an education program to be at the cutting edge, you want it to exceed what people are doing right now enough that they're being innovative and continuing to develop as new knowledge occurs. But the school, I spent several months with the school working through that. Somehow when you have the numbers there, it's harder for faculty members to defend their own pet areas. So we did that comparison, and they continued to use that material for 3 more years after I left, and were able to use that in a very productive way. So that was a great experience. Also had the experience to represent CSU in a contract we had with a university in Chile, and I also had the chance to help set up the study abroad program that Applied Human Sciences had with a university in Canberra, Australia. So again, being a part of a university provides so many rich opportunities to have experiences, and I've always involved my family in doing those things, and people from those universities have come, they've stayed in this house, they've got really good personal relationships with people from those experiences. Really, I found that I did most of my writing about between 5 a.m. and 8 a.m. and then I could go to work and do my job. And in the evenings, I rarely work. That's family time. But yes, I've had very good reception to my textbooks. You ask how many. One way of counting is say there are 4 different books, but if you look at the Library of Congress listing that has all of the editions, revised editions, got 25 books that have come out that have ISBN numbers and are located in the Library of Congress. Some of the data from my publisher says that they've sold about 250,000 books. So I figure I put 250,000 students to sleep many nights, and so I feel I've made quite a contribution to the. But no, the books have been rewarding. You know, I learned that when I talk about a subject, I can get by without the kind of depth and precision and clarity that I do if I teach it. And so when I moved into teaching, I found, gosh, you know, those students are going to question me, they're going to be confused, and they won't understand this on the exams. And so I had to get to a new level of clarity and understanding to be able to teach. And then when I started writing these textbooks and journal articles and that sort of thing. It pushed me to a whole nother level of understanding. I mean, that knowledge stands still. You can't defend it. It's there, and it has to represent what you want to communicate. So I found that the writing really pushed me to a kind of understanding of subject matter that I couldn't get by with just in general conversation. I might pass along something that I learned about writing just by doing it, and that is, if I write to my computer screen, I'm really writing to myself. And I don't necessarily communicate at the level or the interest level of the person I'm writing to. So I was writing the first book, my Social Work, A Profession of Many Faces book, and I got the idea that my son, who was a senior in high school and was pretty much at the age of a new freshman, sophomore, who would be looking at this introductory book. And so I thought, I'll write it to Chris. And so I started doing that, and I learned that I can, whenever I write, I figure out who my real audience is. I put a sticky note, if I have a picture of that person, I put it on my computer screen, and I start writing to that person, and I communicate so much more effectively than if I'm just writing to myself, really, when I write to the computer screen. So that's been a trick that I learned that really helped. One of the things maybe I'm most proud about, in addition to the 250,000 students that I've put to sleep, is that one of my books just got translated into Korean. And so it's kind of neat to think that it's useful enough in another country that it can be, it has been translated and is available in that language. Well, I really didn't establish the Brad Sheafor lecture series. I'm certainly humbled by it. It's a very nice honor. Actually, the idea came from Deb Valentine, who was director of the social work program. And I expect you know that naming really becomes a way to raise money for something. And I was willing to participate in that because I think this university and this community needs to have the infusion on a regular basis of some of the national leaders in social work or social work education coming and making a major presentation. So I was willing to participate in this and contribute to it and help to promote it, but really the payoff is not the recognition of Brad Sheafor, but it's the creation of a series where we can bring cutting-edge ideas in my field to this community. Well, I guess I could say several things. One is, and I'd like to broaden that to others beyond students, but yes, what would I say to students and others about what my experience and career has led me to, since I'm retiring in a couple of months, why I'm doing a lot of thinking about what I've been and what my career has been like, and it's been just wonderful. And number one, I think I would first promote my profession, which I think has been very rewarding, and I have loved the mix of paying attention to people individually and in groups, as well as looking at social policies and systems in the communities and bringing about change there. I really don't believe very much in trying to help people adjust to bad situations without trying to change the bad situations as well. And so the focus of social work is really what we call the person and the environment, and that we really have to adjust both of those to make the well-being of people as good as it can be. So that's the mission of social work, that it has fit me perfectly. Second, coming to CSU and to Fort Collins has been a wonderful experience. The breadth of things is, and we haven't talked about everything I've done, but the breadth of things I've been able to do in this university, and to watch it grow from a small, relatively small university of about 14,000 to double that size now. I think CSU has grown well. We've certainly had our problems along the way, but it's grown well. Fort Collins was about 45,000 when we moved here. It has about tripled in size, maybe more than that. I think Fort Collins has grown well. I can't think of a better place to live. I can't think of a better career than higher education. You work with bright young people all the time. You can be at the cutting edge of the new knowledge in your field. CSU's given me opportunities to cast around to do a variety of things. It's just been a great place, both in Fort Collins and at CSU, to spend one's career. So, you know, those are things that I have really appreciated. I've never hesitated to take my work home or take my home to work. And that's really to say that wherever I go, I carry a briefcase with some things to do and to catch up. And so when I get some free time, I just enjoy my work so much that I don't hesitate to pull that out. And I don't feel it's a burden. I feel it's a way I like to spend my time. Also, we've had so many people in our house from around the country and around the world. My wife Nadine has been every bit as involved in this. She probably knows more social workers nationally, and we've probably had more come and stay with us as a part of our friendship circle. And so work and home aren't separate for me. And I think we sometimes advise people to keep those two things separate, have your boundaries very clear on those kind of things. There's certainly some boundary issues you have to pay attention to, but I think our lives have been enriched by the opportunity to engage with people, not only locally, but throughout the U.S. in some of the positions I've had in social work education and other social work organizations, and internationally.